So with your view about COVID-19 situation, how would you like to evaluate the way Thai government handling the situation?
Well, I think first of all, to be fair to, in fact, all governments, we are facing an unprecedented situation. There are still, even until today, many unknowns about the disease, the pandemic, and how it's going to play out. So it's quite easy to pick and comment on what should have been done, could have been done. But for Thailand, I think at least the numbers suggest that we must be doing something right, because at least for the last 3 days, we're now down to single digit. So it seems like we have won the first round anyway, as far as the health concerns are. But of course, the problem with the economic side is less rosy. I think we have seen problems, especially with attempts of the government to try to help the people who have lost their income, because the way the system that they've set up, the system meant that it's too complicated and a lot of mistakes in terms of screening. And people will feel that there is also a lot of discrimination because there are so many schemes, and they may feel that they're not getting what they should be getting. So that's an area where there needs to be an improvement, certainly. At the same time, having said that, we are not over the health crisis yet, because there are challenges ahead, especially as we ease the restrictions.
It looks like what is troubling the people more these days is less the pandemic itself, but more the prospect of a continuing economic downturn that would affect their livelihood.
Well, the two issues, I mean, I've said right at the outset, are intertwined. You can't really separate them, because if we, for instance, if we ease the restrictions only to discover that we have a second wave of infection, we'll be back to where we were, and the economy will suffer even worse. At the same time, obviously, if we try to eradicate the health crisis at all costs, you will find that there will be growing public frustration. We've already seen, at least in other countries, protests. And if we cannot get the cooperation of the people, you can't overcome the health crisis either. So the success of the Thai experience so far has been pretty much due to cooperation of the people, the strength of our health system and our healthcare workers, as well as health volunteers. And so we mustn't risk losing all the gains that we've made.
Now, as former Prime Minister, I'm certainly you understand the mechanisms of the government and all the government agencies involved in the fight against the pandemic. Is there things that we can do more, or do you think that we have done pretty enough to the extent that we can to contain the virus?
There is one area which is still a concern to me, and that is the extent of testing that we've done. I know they've tried to increase or ramp up the number of tests being applied, but it's still low by comparing to other countries. And I think it's pretty much a consensus that if you want to open up, if you want to ease the restrictions, the best protection you can have against a second or third wave of infection is to have extensive testing. We're not doing enough. We're not doing it proactively enough. And I can understand the concerns about the quality of the tests that are available at the moment. I don't think cost is much of an issue, but there continues to be concern about the quality and accuracy of the tests. But I have to say that I think in a situation like this, there will always be remaining risks and uncertainty. And if, for instance, the tests are 80% accurate, let's say, that's a sort of number that's usually being cited. Isn't it better that we know something with 80% accuracy than not knowing at all? So if we do the testing with the caveats in mind that these tests have false positives, have false negatives, maybe up to 20%, We recognize that the rapid test may only detect the virus after the person has had it for maybe up to 2 weeks or even longer than that. If we know the warning on the labels, if you like, then I think we can still make good use of this. Because what we should do is extensive testing and linking it to a tracing app, which is becoming, available, in fact, globally.
How do you think local politics has been shaken by this COVID-19 and how does it will affect on leadership?
Well, the last couple of days, I saw a story about the leading coalition party having internal problems. That suggests to me that the domestic politics hasn't moved much despite the pandemic. And I also see, looking at the reactions of people to government measures, that you can clearly detect that the division in Thai politics remains there and remains deep. So I think once the pandemic is resolved, I still don't see much of a shift in terms of political behavior.